What's the ultimate track to be financially free and to get to retirement faster? So many young adults and professionals don't consider these 5 important steps to get to their retirement goals soon enough. Unfortunately, our education system doesn't really teach us much about finances. We learn everything about geometry and everything else. Unfortunately, we don't learn enough about financial planning, savings, what is compound interest, the things that actually matter in life. Like when you become an adult, it's like, oh shoot, I didn't learn any of this stuff. Part of this channel is to educate all of you watching this and get you on track. And you may think you're on track, but hopefully today we're going to give you 5 tips that will move you better in that direction. So the first thing we want to talk about is the lack of just basic financial knowledge. Stuff that we should learn in high school, we don't. Like, how do we get going on that? What's the process? And like, to our viewers, like other than channels like this, what should they be doing?
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. You learn a lot about other subjects, but not ones that you apply in your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. So, you're missing out on financial literacy, and it's budgeting, savings, what a simple RRSP or TFSA account actually is.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue because without that knowledge, you're basically going into life pretty blindfolded.
Yeah. And what's the number one reason for divorce? Not to jump forward, but typically people, whether it's divorce or just conflict in marriage, and you're newly married, and I've been married for 11 years now, it is money. Like the conversation around money and not knowing how to, get a mortgage and save. And okay, we've started making some money. Do I put money into an RSP and TFSA? Stuff like that. Like that, the basic steps along the way. How to pay off debt, how not to go into debt and run a budget and all that stuff. Like that can be a huge conflict for people in their marriage or just in their everyday life. If you're single, like you need to figure this stuff out. So definitely just lack of basic knowledge. So if you feel like you're not on track with your knowledge, if you don't know what compound interest is, how a mortgage works, what a TFSA is, what the limits are, how an RSP works, when to use each one, you need to put in the effort and start learning. And hopefully channels like this will help you along the way. So the second key step is to have an emergency fund. And I think this is at any age. And we actually have a younger client right now that keeps dipping into their emergency fund substantially every month because they're out of a job right now. But at least they have that, so they have something to lean on. So they're actually spending their emergency fund, which is what it's there for. I mean, hopefully you never use it, but some do. But maybe talk about like emergency fund, how to structure one, and why at any age, whether you're 20 or 65, it's good to have it.
Yeah, so you kind of touched on it there, Adam. But yeah, an emergency fund is basically just a safety net. It's something to protect you in the case of, lost job, or you have an unexpected expense come, new roof on your house, anything like that. It's something where you don't want to be dipping into your retirement savings. You don't want to be pulling out a line of credit, with crazy high interest rates right now.
Or credit cards.
Exactly. Those are all things that are going to hurt you long term.
Yeah. Without
just a simple bank account set up in the case of an emergency fund, you're really in a pretty dangerous position.
Yeah. And this is where it's important, even like my kids right now, when they earn money, I should say get money for birthday, but when they earn money, we take part of it and put it into like a savings. And that's really, as a kid, that's your emergency fund. If you have something come up, that's kind of the emergency fund. So no matter what age you're, start saving. If you don't have an emergency fund, start saving one and save it into, in a high interest account at your bank, you can get, 2, 3, 4% right now, depending on when you're watching this video, but just start saving. Carve out, I typically say 2 to 5% of your income on a monthly basis and shove it into an emergency fund, and it'll start to build up. It's not going to be worth a whole lot overnight, but it'll build up, and hopefully if you ever do need to dip into it, you have at least a bit of a base there before you have to dip into line of credit or credit card or whatever else, which hopefully never happens. But again, get that base going so you have a bit of a fallback that you don't have to pour money at 21%. So
exactly. Yeah, and one more really important thing to note is an emergency fund is not your slush fund.
Yeah.
You don't use that money for that next vacation. That is your vacation spending money. An emergency fund is that. It's an emergency. If you need to dip into this for a car rental because yours broke down, or you have car repairs, anything like that, that is an emergency that is affecting your day-to-day life. Yeah. You not being able to go on that vacation to Hawaii, that's not an emergency.
Yeah. And typically, if you build up over time, you might say, okay, guys, like we've saved this up, we've built up an emergency. Like, where do we stop? Typically 3 to 6 months. It's good to have 6, maybe even 9 months. I always say it comes back to what you do for a job. Like, how risky is your job? Could you be out of work for 9 months, 12 months? Well, then build a bigger emergency fund. If you have a type of job or a skill set that, like, I'm not going to be out of work for more than 3 to 6 months, then a 3 to 6 month emergency fund would be more than enough. The third thing we want to talk about, and this is really geared at people for like 35 under, is to start saving early and the power of compound interest. So maybe talk about compound interest, how it works. If you've never heard of the term compound interest, if you have credit card debt, you understand what compound interest is the wrong way. You want to learn about it as far as savings and it working for you. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, so simply define compound interest is just the idea of saving early will benefit you much more later on. Say we have, one individual, he's saving at 21 years old, just a simple $200 a month, and he's saving it from age 21 to age 30. Okay, he's got
only
a decent
9
amount.
years of savings.
Only 9 years of savings. So he's saving quite a bit there in that time frame. But now that money is able to compound for the rest of his life until he needs to access it. And then we have another individual where they're saving $2,400 a year, but that only begins when he turns 30.
Okay, so same savings, but starts 9 years later.
Exactly. He has to contribute from age 30 to age 67 to actually get the same amount as that first individual at the end of the day.
Crazy.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's a lot of additional savings just to catch up to that person who started saving a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And another number I always use this with clients is if you started saving $100 a month at 25 versus 35, so just that 10 years difference, you're going to have double the amount of money at 65. So that extra 10 years, like 25 to 35, and then you're saving both of you all the way up to 65, the person that started at 25 versus 35 has almost double the amount of money, which is mind-blowing, right? So if you're sitting there watching this video saying, I don't know if I can save, start plugging away. A lot of people at work, you'll have some sort of matching RSP program. Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Stuff like that, just start saving early and allow compound interest to actually work for you. It's a very powerful tool, and most of you, probably 80-90% of you watching these videos are not taking advantage of compound interest just by you're using your money on stuff that you shouldn't be, or you're just overspending. Start over saving, and then you won't have to work as hard later in life. And then talking about overspending, number 4 would be the consequence of expensive lifestyle. I know, like I'll say our generation, kind of the 20 to 45-year-old market is, we want what our parents have today, but we want it now. We don't want to work for it. We just want it. And it's just crippling, right? So
yeah, you definitely see it a lot too in the current influencer kind of stage that there's out there. You see someone driving that newer car, they're around the same age as you. You want that. That's something you desire. Doesn't mean you can afford it. And that's kind of the issue. A lot of people are going to a point where they're spending more than they should be. They're taking on more debt than they can actually afford, because they want to have that certain appearance.
Yeah.
That is detrimental to anyone's finances. Doesn't matter what age you're at.
Yeah, and being in this business for almost 20 years now, I can say that I'll meet people that, will show up to the meeting in a $100,000 vehicle. They live in a nice house. But of course, on our side, we see their finances. We see their world opened up. And I would say a large portion of these people that have new homes, new cars, new everything, they can't afford any of it. And then you meet people, they pull up in, an old, cheap, Honda Civic, it's basic, they live in a basic neighborhood, they've lived in the same house for a long time, but they have wealth. They have true wealth. And so my encouragement to everyone watching this is don't be fooled by what you see, or even what you hear, because they can tell you whatever they want to tell. Worry about yourself and don't overspend. Have a plan, have a savings plan. Know how your money is working for you. Again, going back to the last one, compound interest. These people have compound interest working against them. That debt just compounds on itself. And it's trust me, we see it on our end. It's absolutely crippling. So work really hard to not live beyond your means. Hold back. I know my wife and I, we've worked really hard in not overspending on travel and that kind of stuff to put more money away for our kids' education and other stuff for down the road. And the 5th and final one would be lifestyle inflation. And this kind of ties into the last one as well, but it's really, I got a raise, I can now go spend that money. And we love to see our clients, when they get that raise, they're saving more money. They're putting more money in retirement. They can retire earlier. The idea of getting more money is we can now save more, retire earlier, retire with more. All of that. It's not, okay, I can go upgrade my car again because it's been 2 years.
No, exactly. And if you have that lifestyle inflation, you're not saving money, which means you're not using that money to work for you. You end up just working longer for money.
Yeah.
And that's an endless cycle of, you constantly spending more as you earn more, which still puts you in the same position at the end of the day
Yeah.
because you can only pocket what you're not spending.
It's funny because I think a lot of people search like FIRE, like, retire early. And a lot of people love that concept. It's like, yeah, FIRE, I'm going to retire early and I got my raise. But then how they live and how they save and how it's just like the furthest thing from it. I've talked to people, it's like, yeah, I want to, follow the FIRE movement. But last time I got a raise, yeah, I drive a new car and I have a new house and we do this, we do 5 trips. It's like there's a disconnect. So step one is really figure out, what you can afford. And then B, figure out where you want to be. Like, you don't necessarily want to create a retirement plan when you're 25, but like set goals, put them on paper, have an accountability partner in that. And that will help you in all 5 of these steps along the way. It'll help you save more, spend less, and just have better structure in your financial world. If you're someone that's not sure kind of where to start, these YouTube videos are helping, you're getting a bit of help online. We have actually created a financial masterclass, and we built this for kind of the 20 to 45-year-old market. There's 100 videos, content that we put together. Basically everything you should have learned in high school in an online course. You can learn at your own time. It's on an app. It's easy to use. And it'll teach you kind of all the fundamental basics that you should have that you don't. And there's a reason why you don't. We're never taught it anywhere. So that's why we created this course. So if you want to learn more about our masterclass, we'll put that link below. Thanks for joining us in this video. We'll see you in the next one.